What's up, everybody? It's Esteban from Game 7 Peak Performance. I wanted to take the opportunity and introduce you to a very special guest and good friend of mine. This is Lauren Silvio. Lauren, say hi to the audience for us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren. I'm the Director of Sports Nutrition at Auburn. I oversee all the sports here and work directly with football and gymnastics. So really excited to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you, Lauren. Appreciate you coming on with us. I know you're very busy. First question I have for you is, when you do actually have free time, what do you like doing?
This is such a dietitian answer. I like to run and I like to bake and cook things.
Oh, wow.
But actually something I just started doing this summer, I started teaching spin classes. It's like Auburn's version of Soul Cycle, which we don't have Soul Cycle because Auburn's a small town, but it's kind of like that. I thought it was a cool opportunity to kind of get out in the community and meet other people that aren't related to athletics, just because that's kind of my bubble here. So it's been really cool to be able to do that and kind of meet some other people around Auburn.
Nice. All right, so let's backtrack here for a second. All right. What is your favorite baked good?
Ooh. Oh, goodness, that's so hard. Everything my mom makes is really good, so I just try to copy her and be as good as her as like at cooking and baking. I'm a big red velvet cake person.
Ooh, nice.
I also love some bread pudding, like Louisiana, New Orleans style. Delicious. What else?
Everybody hungry.
I like everything sweet. It's such a problem.
Nice. So perfect fit for a nutritionist, right?
Yes, I'm a normal person. Surprising to all.
Love it. So what did you have to do to like start instructing the spin classes? Or is it like you had to get certified or anything like that?
So basically from what I've learned now, they kind of scout people in the classes, because I was taking before I started teaching.
Oh.
And then they like ask you, would you be interested in teaching? Which I thought it was cool to do. Which is a little crazy going into football season, but it's been fun. It's been something, to distract me from that. And then they just train you on how to properly teach and like form and how to pick music and all of that fun stuff. So
love it. All right. So yeah. I have to know, just for my own sanity, what kind of coach are you? Are you like come on? Are you just kind of like encouraging? Because I know Lauren from when we worked at LSU together, and Lauren, she would get after it in the weight room every once in a while, and you saw her on the cardio deck for hours on end. So I want to know, like, how do you interact with your athletes?
Right. So it's more of like an encouragement thing. I wouldn't say I'm like a person that yells at everyone, because you have a mic, so it's kind of interesting.
So disappointing.
You're like, you got it, or like, great job. That's just me in general. I'm very much the like encouragement, like build people in like a polite way kind of coach, if you want to call it coaching. But yeah, it's really fun. It's definitely something different, and it's not what I'm used to, because I played soccer my whole life, and that was more of the like yelling at you kind of coaching situation, like you need to do better or else kind of stuff. So it's definitely different, but it's really fun.
Well, glad to hear that you're staying busy over there. So before we get into your current role at Auburn, kind of take us through, why you decided to be a nutritionist. What led to that decision?
Yep. So kind of what I was saying with soccer, that's something that really kind of sparked my interest in nutrition when I was in high school. I played club soccer for years and years, and high school soccer with a lot of the same people I played club with. So obviously soccer is a very physically tasking sport. You have to have great endurance. You also have to be quick, because you have to run sprints or, beat someone to a ball. So nutrition is really important in that. And I don't think I realized that very, very early on. I kind of started to realize like nutrition made a difference my senior years, when I kind of got interested in like food and how it affected your performance and how you felt, because what we were doing was eating pizzas before every game and just kind of not even thinking anything of it. So that kind of like sparked my interest in my senior year of high school. So when I got to college, I decided to go into food and nutrition. I went to the University of Alabama, and they had a food and nutrition program, and they also had a coordinated program, which allows you to do basically your practice hours in like hospitals, nursing homes, and I worked in a health department, and it lets you get your practice hours so you can sit for that registered dietitian exam as soon as you graduate from undergrad. So it kind of saves you a year from the internship route that a lot of people take, which I thought was really cool. Right. It was challenging because you were working full-time in clinics or hospitals while you were also taking full course load junior and senior year, but it was totally worth it. So when I finished that, I had contacted the dietitian at LSU, who was at the time Jamie Meeks. She's now at the Saints. I just reached out to her because I knew I wanted to go to grad school at LSU, and had already applied to their exercise physiology program and their kinesiology program. And just reached out to her because I was already a dietitian and was like, hey, can I help you out? I have a real interest in sports, which kind of goes back to, growing up playing sports forever. I kind of always knew I wanted to be in sports, and that was an opportunity that just kind of came about when I emailed her, and she was like, yeah, I can use all the help you can give me. So ended up getting with her when I got to Baton Rouge, and now I'm in Auburn. But Jamie was amazing. It's where I met you, of course. It was a great time. We had a really great crew down there. The whole support staff between strength and nutrition, I thought, worked really, really well together at LSU the whole time I was there. So I was there for 3 years. And then in 2016, in the summer, I got the job here at Auburn. So kind of working around the SEC West, just keeping it really interesting, giving away all the secrets to all the football programs. I'm just kidding.
Talking smack across the sidelines.
Do what?
Talking smack across the sidelines. I know.
Oh my gosh, I know. I catch so much crap from that. Like at practices when we're going into like Iron Bowl or LSU week, they're like, oh, you don't want us to win. I'm like, y'all, come on. They love to give me a hard time about where I went to school, but yeah, so here at Auburn, just getting ready for our bowl game now.
Love it. I love it.
Times.
So let's backtrack to your time at LSU. What would you say is the number one thing you learned from Jamie?
Ooh. Gosh, I don't know. She taught me so many things. She was wonderful. I would say one thing she was really, really good at that I always respected was how well she worked with people, because I think a lot of times in a high pressure environment like college athletics, it's really easy to get emotional or, get really upset with things, or, maybe say something you didn't actually mean. Like people end up being rude if, coaches are under a lot of pressure, other staff are under a lot of pressure, and it can become kind of like a hostile environment. And I thought she always did a really, really good job of calmly like explaining things if someone was upset about something, or just working well with others in general, because I think that's so important for our field, because we work with so many different branches of people. So we work with strength, we work with athletic training, the team physicians, and then also you have coaches, operations people, all of that. So there's so many different personalities, there's so many different things you have to be involved in, that it's really important to be able to work with all those different people in a nice manner, I guess.
Right.
And I think and on top of that, I think her work ethic was amazing. One thing with nutrition is it gets spread really, really thin in college athletics, and it's hard to be everything to everyone. And honestly, you can't be. And I thought she did a really good job of, taking care of the athletes and also, balancing everything. I thought she did a really, really good job of that.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm definitely guilty of being one of those coaches, but I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of great nutritionists in my career. And like I said before, we're just glad to have you on board, Lauren. So talk to me about your current role. What does your day-to-day look like, your responsibilities? Are there any differences in what you do from the in-season and the off-season?
Yeah, so the schedule is kind of different depending on the season. So during season, it's kind of every week I start the week planning for our game week for football, because I'm super involved. I plan all their meals and menus, whether it's catering or at the hotel. I work with all the hotel people, ordering food from vendors around town for them, setting up post-game meal if we're at an away game, all that kind of stuff. So I do a lot of that. try to get everything organized, and then we'll lift during the week, and we also have practices. So I attend all the lifts, make recovery drinks for our high needs guys, give out cherry juice, vitamins, stuff like that, just to kind of help them recover and their performance in general and their general health. We give them vitamins just to make sure that they're kind of covered if they're not reaching things in their diet. Like maybe they don't like vegetables as much as some people. So just trying to make sure they're covered. And then we'll work at practices. So have, sideline fuel to make sure they're feeling good. It's especially important during camp season. So like all of August during preseason when it's 100 degrees and humid out here, and the guys are, trying to make sure they're fueled and preventing cramps. So we have stuff to help them kind of prevent cramps. And then in off season, like in spring, they just lift a lot. So those are the times when you really want to make those changes, I would say. I don't recommend crazy dietary changes during the season because you don't want it to affect performance. Right. You kind of want to stick with your routine and what works for you. But in off season, that's when I'll meet with the strength coaches and we'll make a list of guys. Okay, these are guys that could use some weight loss. These are guys that could afford to gain a few pounds, and then we have our new freshmen. We have some guys come in halfway during the year, the early enrollees. And we'll kind of gauge what we need to do with them and how we need to improve them. Because, high school kids come in and they haven't necessarily been training the same as a college training program would be. So kind of getting them acclimated to that and just evaluating what we need to do. And then if there's guys I need to sit down and meet with, I'll have meetings with them. Any guys with allergies, I'll sit down and meet with them too. And then same thing in the spring with the lifts and any spring practices they have, attending those, making sure everyone's covered, planning any meals we have. And then summer is pretty similar to that as well. As far as the other sports, gymnastics is my other sport I work with, which is the polar opposite of football. All my gymnasts have a lot of it makes it really fun and interesting to be able to work with two sports that are so different from each other. But gymnastics is one where they have a lot of interest in nutrition, and they typically eat what you would consider a healthier diet, love their vegetables. A lot of them don't eat a lot of meat, which isn't necessarily the best option, but if they have that choice that they want to make, then we have to work with them on their diet and what's best for their performance, because gymnastics is one of those sports that is incredibly physically tasking, and it's so important to have the right thing in your body because it's so hard on your joints, and just the ability they have it's incredible. I tell them that all the time. Like, I don't know how you do this, but it's amazing. But yeah, so just kind of working with each athlete. Everyone's different. So trying to kind of find a middle ground where we can start to make small changes to help benefit their performance in the end and their general health.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Don't want to put you on the spot here on anything specific, but is there anything that you mentioned that you go out and you look for vendors, obviously, to feed your players? Is there anything specific that you're looking for from them? Like, are you kind of excommunicating some restaurants because they're GMO based or anything like that?
I don't really do it based on like GMO kind of stuff. I do it on what their menu availability is. So with gymnastics, I know that they're going to want a grilled chicken option or something like super lean protein option. And I need to find a restaurant that has sides that are a lot of vegetables, maybe some rice or like a pasta option. With football, it's dependent on the restaurant because there are so many of them and they have so many wants, and trying to kind of like guide them towards better choices is what I try to do while still putting things that they'll eat, because at times you want them to eat, like they need calories in general, and you want them to be calories that help fuel their performance, but you also don't want them to have a meal that's so far out of what they like that they just won't eat at all, because then that negatively affects their performance too, just like a really unhealthy meal would. So it's kind of finding that balance. It's taken me a couple years because when I first got here, I wasn't really sure. Every team's so different. Like LSU liked certain things. Auburn's different than LSU because the guys, they're from different areas. They recruit different areas. So kind of trying to feel out what they like, what they don't like, asking the guys, what restaurants do y'all frequent in town? and kind of trying to build off of that and, have them try new things, but also have things they like that I know they like. It's really important. Right. Finding that balance is really important.
Gotcha. So let's talk about different body types or different goals for different body types. Generally speaking, are there like certain macronutrients that you tend to lean towards for a specific body type? Or no, what's your philosophy behind that? Or what are your specific plans?
Yeah, so I think that it's all dependent upon what your goals are, whether it's gaining or losing weight, and also what your training is like. I think that's something really important to focus on because, a lot of times you'll hear people say, oh, if you want to lose weight, you just don't eat carbs. Well, if you're training a lot, you might need those carbs because that's your main source of fuel from your body. So it's really dependent upon the person, and that's why I don't do like blanket kind of plans, because if I meet with someone that's training really hard, they need carbs, but then maybe on a day when they're not training as hard or they have an off day, you wouldn't want that same amount of carbohydrates, if that makes sense. Yeah, so absolutely. Kind of like basing your choices on food off of how your training schedule is that day and educating people on the right ways to kind of go about that, because every food is going to fit into, a proper fueling plan, because you have to kind of treat yourself every once in a while. You don't want to completely just cut everything out that you enjoy, because food should be an enjoyable kind of experience. It shouldn't be something that's a stressful experience, but there's a time when you make those right choices versus, maybe something that's not best whenever you're training. So it just kind of depends on the person, and always recommending protein, post-training, because that's what helps rebuild and repair those muscles that you're breaking down whenever you're exercising, whether that's, practicing or lifting, anything like that. And that's the amount is kind of dependent upon the person's size as well. And then just recommending healthy fats and educating people what healthy fats are.
So let's talk about that. What are healthy fats? Because there's a lot of, bad information out there. Let's break it down for the audience.
Right. So things with like omega-3s. So that would be like avocados, some stuff like quinoa even has that. Your nuts like almonds, nut butters aren't the worst, but in large amounts, because of the oil in them, they become higher in fat, because nuts do naturally have fat in them, but higher in, I guess it's higher in calories, not higher in fat. They are already fat. So just kind of, but yeah, those kinds of things versus a saturated fat, which is like increasing inflammation in your body, while a healthier fat like an omega-3 can decrease inflammation. So that's why they're recommended for like joint health, and even like it's good for your brain. But with things like saturated fats, so that would be like fried foods, or red meats have more saturated fat in them, which red meats, you shouldn't completely cut them out because they're high in iron, which is really important for you. But a lot of saturated fat can increase that inflammation. It's not necessarily your best choice, like performance wise. So it's finding balance in those kinds of things.
Awesome. So touched on fat a lot. Okay. Touched on proteins. I want to talk about the big flashy word nowadays, ketogenic diet.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I was bringing it, so
I know.
Let the listeners hear your thoughts on the ketogenic diet.
Okay, so this is my own personal opinion, and I know people have differing opinions, and there's research that both backs it and doesn't give it anything. There's a lot of stuff like that. So with my athletes, I don't recommend that kind of diet. I don't think that cutting out carbs is a healthy option for your body, just knowing that your body, when it's looking for a fuel source, it's looking for carbohydrates. And I think that there's better ways to basically balance. You'll probably hear me say that a lot in general when working with people, because I think that's the biggest thing is when you're balancing a plate. Okay, you need a serving of carbohydrates because you just worked out for an hour, or you went to a soccer practice for 2 hours, and you need to replenish the energy that you burned up. A lot of times people don't feel well if they stop eating carbs, or they might say they feel really great. But part of what that is when you're cutting out some carbohydrate sources, you're cutting out some of the crap in your diet. So your, like your sugary cereals or your pastries or desserts or things like that. But there are, do what?
Your red velvet?
I know, but I don't believe in it, so I'm still gonna eat it.
Gotcha.
But having the proper carbohydrates and knowing what those are is the biggest part. So, looking at your complex carbohydrates that provide you that extended energy, like brown rice or whole wheat bread or whole wheat pasta, gives you kind of extended energy. And those are also higher in fiber, which is good for your digestive health. And it keeps you full longer. So just knowing how to choose the right carbohydrates, I think, is an athlete's best bet for fueling the best and feeling the best with their performance, and not completely cutting it out. I don't think that necessarily benefits them a ton, and it ends up cutting out a lot of options out of your diet. But if you can learn how to properly balance it and get the right things in, like I talked about earlier, it's totally doable to have a normal amount of carbohydrates in your diet.
Love it. All right, so we're gonna switch the gear up on that.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on carb backloading?
Carb backloading. So, okay, give me an example.
I'm a cross-training athlete, and I've read things where if I fast myself of carbohydrates until after my extended period of physical exertion, I can just scarf down ice cream all I want. What's going to happen?
It goes back to what I'm saying about balance, because that's exactly it. Is if you spread things out consistently throughout your day, it'd be the same idea as with like your protein intake. You want to be consistent about your meals and your snacks, and it gives you extended energy, because you're probably going to feel like not very energetic. Then you're going to go work out, and then you'll eat all of that. You'll eat whatever you want after. And if you're like overeating a lot, you're probably going to feel like crap, honestly. But I know some people do that and they like how it feels. But my big thing is just consistency, because I think that a lot of these ideas and diets are all they're fad things that become popular because it worked for one person that's maybe an Olympic lifter or some type of professional athlete or something like that. It worked for them. But I think that not all of these diets really fit everyone's schedule, first of all, and their body, because every person's body reacts differently to things. I mean, you can look at that. You can see two athletes playing the same position in the same sport, and they're doing the same training program, but it's not at all the same. They could be eating the same things and their body might not react the same. Some people can build muscle faster. Some people just don't. And it's just kind of how it is. So it's one of those things where it's not going to fit for everyone. So I don't like to recommend stuff like that or like extremes of fueling, I suppose, is the way I would put that.
Gotcha. Well, you touched on fads for a little bit. So I want to simplify things for our listeners as much as we can here. Generally speaking, if we have a client who is trying to lose, let's call it 20 to 40 pounds of fat, what should they generally know? Three things they should generally know. How about that?
Okay. The first thing is, this is a huge thing, is you can't expect it to be lost overnight. I think that's the biggest thing, and people get really discouraged with that if they have like a set goal of amount of weight to lose, and it's the end of week 1 and they've lost 2 pounds and they're like, oh, this isn't working, so I'm just going to give up. You don't want that to happen to someone. So one thing that I always tell people is that small changes make the biggest difference. So you start small, you make little changes, and eventually you start seeing, you might see that weight kind of starting to come off slowly. You just can't get discouraged about it. But you see that those small changes make a difference, and then it encourages you to continue to make more changes. And that's where you work with a dietitian to kind of continue to set goals. And it's always small goals whenever I work with people, whether it's weight gain or weight loss, because trying to achieve something really big is a challenge, and you can get discouraged really fast with it. So I would say just, portion control, like moderation of stuff for someone that's trying to lose weight is going to be really important, and setting small goals and not getting discouraged by the number on the scale. And if you're doing strength training with it, you might not see that number drop as much because you're building muscle. And you and I both know that the muscle is heavy. So if you might be losing fat, you might be changing your body composition, but you might not be seeing that number on the scale changing as you want it to. But you have to keep in mind, like, I'm doing the right things, and you just have to trust that your body is going to react to it.
Awesome. I'm glad that you pointed that out. That's a question I get a lot, specifically with female athletes and female clients. You know, they're seeing the morphology change in their body, and they like what they see in the mirror. But then they step on the scale. They're so obsessed with what's on the scale that they don't understand that the long-term progress is going to be there as long as they persist through the change, just like you mentioned. All right, so we talked about fat loss. What about somebody who's simply just trying to change their morphology? Like, for example, you have this athlete who's at X weight and they have Y body fat percentage, but they want to see that body fat percentage drop, and they want to stay with the weight they're at. What are some general guidelines for that?
Yeah, I think it's evaluating things that you're doing. So maybe if you have a really bad habit of eating late at night, trying to kind of decrease that or find something that's not as heavy of an option. It just kind of depends. It really takes kind of evaluating what people are doing to kind of understand where you can make those small changes like I was talking about. Because if there's something where it's like, maybe they're eating too big of a dinner, like they're, training in the morning, having their meals throughout the day, and they're eating this huge dinner, and then they're also eating a night snack. Maybe you'd want to switch that heavy meal to the morning and having less at dinner, that kind of thing. And just evaluating where the macronutrients are coming from, what kinds of things they're putting into their body. Maybe they have a sweet tooth and they, every day they eat a candy bar. I've had a consult with an athlete that did that. It's like, yeah, I eat a Reese's bar every single day. I'm like, let's try 4 days a week, So, but just little things like that where maybe like this person doesn't see like something small that can be changed really easily to kind of help them achieve those goals.
Right. Little changes at a time, right?
Little changes, but it makes the biggest difference.
No doubt. Yep. All right. So what about the last type, the athlete or the client who's trying to increase body weight, increase muscle mass without putting on the fat at the same time? They want it to be lean. They want it to look good. They want it to be functional. They want it to be aesthetically appealing. What do you got for us?
Right. Okay. So with that, I think one thing that's really hard, especially with people that struggle to gain weight, which I know happens with a lot of athletes more than you would think, is they try to eat so much food and so much, like they might eat 2 pizzas trying to get the calories they need, right? But in reality, you don't need to eat stuff like that to gain that weight. It's about finding calorie-dense foods that add calories but not volume, if that makes sense. So something like trail mix is very high in calories, or granola, but you don't have to stuff your face with it and feel almost sick trying to do stuff like that. Also, I recommend like drinking a protein shake at night before you go to bed usually, because that's calories and that protein can help you build muscle overnight. So that's something that I recommend. And then just consistently eating, like having your schedule, like knowing, not forgetting to eat, because I know that I've had a lot of athletes that have told me that they're like, oh, well, I get busy and I forget, to have snacks. But it's so important to consistently fuel whenever you're trying to gain weight. But not to a point of being sick, but just, you might have breakfast and then have a snack and then have lunch and then a snack, dinner, and then have a shake before bed or something like that. Gotcha. And adding things like pasta, rice, adding condiments to things. Again, the less volume, so you're not feeling sick, but it adds calories, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Touched on the before sleep shake. Is there a particular type of protein that they should be supplementing with?
So casein is slower digested, and that's what a lot of stuff has been saying. But whey protein is utilized really well by the muscles and creates the most muscle protein synthesis. So it's kind of like the jury's out on that, because you could probably do either. just dependent upon what you have available, or, you know, like I know we keep whey protein here with our kids, and we also have a gainer protein powder. But I think that either way you would be fine. I know there is a lot of research on the casein factor, but there is also that research of how good whey is with muscle protein synthesis. So
gotcha.
Is either better. I think it's just kind of dependent upon what you want to do.
Gotcha. It's interesting that you pointed that out, because generally speaking, that's the advice I would give the casein, the casein protein. But obviously you're the expert and you're up to the latest on the research. So that's why we ask you those types of questions, right? All right. So running out of time here, you have a second for a rapid fire round? Sure.
Ready.
All right. You sure?
I think so.
All right. Best supplement product out there?
Oh, gosh. Do you mean type of supplement?
Yes.
Okay, not brand. Okay, just making sure.
Quickly, rapid fire.
I know, I'm really bad at this. Oh my gosh.
First thing that pops to your head.
My first thing that pops in my head is just a protein powder, but you want to make sure it's, something that's reliable. So what we look for, just so you can know, what we look for here is NSF certification. It's a third-party company that goes and basically checks the facilities of supplement companies to make sure it's exactly what's on the bottle is in the bottle, basically, because supplements aren't regulated by the government. So it's not like a food product where you read the nutrition facts label and that's exactly what's in it. A supplement, they could say it's one thing and it be something completely different. So as far as, like purity and making sure it's safe for our kids and they're not going to be popped for a banned substance, that's something that I always recommend to them. I think that especially with your weight gainers, and also you can use protein for your weight loss people or anyone who's maybe not getting enough in their diet, because you could use a whey protein supplement as some type of shake to kind of like cover a post-workout, just something plain with like 20 grams or 20 to 40 grams, depending on how big the person is. But then you also have the gainer option, which when you're drinking things, sometimes it doesn't make you feel as full. So going back to that weight gain, if you have, a gainer protein powder that you're drinking, it might not give your brain that same thought of, well, I'm so full, I can't eat anything else, but you're still getting those calories in. I know the big question was the creatine thing. I figured that's where you were going with that, honestly.
I was trying to sneak it in there.
A strength coach. I'm just kidding. So with creatine, there are some good products out there, but creatine is one of those things where it doesn't work for everyone. And you also have to cycle it properly and make sure you're hydrated, all of that. So that's something where you definitely work with a dietitian and probably a strength coach, trying to know what someone's goals are to use it properly and find the right product for you, because not everyone needs it. And it also isn't going to help everyone that's going to take it. So.
Gotcha. All right. Soy protein.
Soy protein. Okay. So soy, I'd rather you have soy if you absolutely won't do like a dairy, because whey is going to be your best bet. But there are some good like plant protein powders or soy protein powders out there. We also have like soy milk that you can drink. Not the worst. It's better than doing like almond milk because soy milk has more protein in it. Almond milk is a lot lower in protein, and that's one of those things that you're kind of looking for. But yeah, it's not a bad option. I would just go with whey if you don't have a aversion to a dairy product, basically.
Gotcha. All right. Organic.
Okay. I don't do organic. That's just, again, me personally. Don't do it. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't know that it's that much better than something that's non-organic, if that makes sense. Because there are a lot of organic farms, but what happens is, if there's a farm next door that's not organic and it rains and the water runs into your organic farm, then is it still organic? Is my question. Question of the hour.
Is it?
That's just how I feel about it. That's just my personal opinion. There's plenty of people that eat organic and love it, and it's, great, and it is more expensive, but if that's your personal preference, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and you can totally work that into a diet. So.
All right. Grass-fed.
Yeah, same idea. It's supposedly like more of, or a better option, healthier option, I suppose, or cleaner. But that's personal preference too. It's, I'm
Gotcha.
Either way, I'm indifferent.
All right. Heat exhaustion.
Are you just Googling things to ask me questions about?
No. I have a list here. I'm almost done.
I'm just messing with you. I thought you were Googling in the background. I'm messing with you. So heat exhaustion. Okay, yes. So hydration is hugely important. Having a good fueling plan is hugely important with that. Kind of like what I talked about with our guys during football camp, because they're practicing outside. It's so hot. They're wearing full pads. You just have to know what you're doing. You have to make sure you're hydrated and you have those electrolytes in you. So using sports drinks for those, or salting your food. Salt's not the most popular thing for general population, but for an athletic population that sweats a lot, salt is very important in your diet. And it helps you to not cramp, basically, or pass out. And then obviously fueling enough helps you to, if you have enough calories and you have enough fuel in your body to make it through the workout, you're not going to have an issue with that. But it's all about having a plan, and making sure, especially if you're in a very warm and humid climate where you sweat a lot and it's very, very hot, to make sure you're kind of prepared and making sure you're hydrating consistently before, during, and after you're exercising.
Okay. Cucumber juice.
Cucumber juice. It's funny. I don't know a ton about that, I'll be honest with you, but I've seen a lot about it on Instagram. But I'm pretty sure it's just really close to water with like some extra nutrients in it.
Gotcha. All right. Pickle juice.
Oh yeah, we use pickle juice here actually. So it's the same idea. Basically, it's very salty. It's a fluid. And it basically helps hydrate you. We actually use that a lot here with our guys, and they really like it. And we just give them pickles as well. But kind of same idea as like a sports drink, but it's a little more concentrated than something like that, especially with the salt factor. So it's a good option if it's a cheap option rather than supplementing like some type of gel or goo or something you can buy at a supplement store. Pickle juice is a really easy option.
Gotcha. All right. 2 more for you.
Okay.
Sleep.
So important. Oh my gosh. That's like one of the most important things. So it's supposed to be around 8 hours a night, cool room, dark room, turn off all your electronics. Having some type of like white noise or fan is also helpful. But yeah, sleep is something that we preach constantly. And myself, the strength coaches, the athletic trainers, we're always telling our kids because, they stay up all night studying or talking on FaceTime or playing Fortnite because that's what they like to do, all the video games. So sleep is something that I think you don't think about being a huge performance benefit or like kind of detriment, but it's so important. There's tons of stuff that has come out about that and making sure you're getting enough rest, and it helps you with like your focus and your balance and all kinds of things pertaining to performance that you wouldn't think of. So it just helps your brain work better. When you're playing a sport, it's kind of important to think fast usually. So you want to be on point with that and make sure you get enough sleep.
Definitely got to be well rested.
Yep.
Last one.
Okay.
Best mentor.
Best mentor. Jamie, 100%.
All right.
You knew I was going to say that. She's the best. Is she here? I'm just kidding. You have to send her this.
All right.
I love her.
We know you're busy, Lauren, so thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Again, to the listeners out there, Lauren's going to be taking care of you guys. So where can our audience reach you at, Lauren? Do you have social media or anything like that they can see everything?
Yep. It's just my name. That's my social media. All of them. Just Lauren Silvio.
Lauren Silvio. There you go. Well,
yep.
Thanks again for joining us, Lauren. Go Tigers, War Eagle, right?
It's War Eagle, man. Come on.
Nah, can't do it.
I know you can. It's okay. All right. I'll see you. Good talking to you.
All right.